Howdy mates. Well, you know, I've been talking about redoing my Dodger. You can see it's just kind of straight across. What I want to do is put a little bit of a curve to it, raise it up a little bit so I can see underneath instead of having to go like this over the top. So I've started working on it and, you know, watching a few other videos on how to do them, and this will be the third time that I've redone the hard Dodger. The first time really didn't work out well at all. I used too thin a wood, and second time turned out better. This time I hope it's going to be it. But anyway, watching some of these other videos, I see people use, you know, the big 4x8 sheets of plywood, and then they cut out the little templates and that, and to me that's expensive and a little wasteful with some of the wood. Now, the Nitacore, which would really be nice to use, same thing. You cut a big piece, you cut out the things, but that is super duper expensive. It's very durable once you fiberglass and epoxy it, but it's very expensive to get. I mean, the shipping on it is almost as much as the material. So I knew I was going to have a little bit of a challenge, a lot of a challenge of cutting the arch. So got a big piece of cardboard, set it up there, had a piece of flex pipe, and I put that across. I drew a nice line. Well, I drew an okay line, but you know, it was all right. Then, and I used 1x6 wood for this. Laid that out on the template, drew it out, started to cut it. Now, I'm not good at cutting. I did a horrible job. And so then I thought, well, all right, I drew the arch again, or the arc again, and I saw where I needed. I started sanding with the belt sander, and, you know, all I did is make it worse. And then I thought, well, you know what? I'll cut some thin pieces of wood, bend them, fiberglass them, and I'm thinking, I don't have a steamer, I don't know how to do that for sure. And then it came to me. Cut the nice thin piece of wood, epoxy it to the arch I cut. And I think that turned out pretty good. You can see here, you can see the gaps as to where it wasn't nice and a nice flow. It's much, much better now. So what I did is I used the epoxy and a fairing compound, and I made it really, really thick. You know, I almost made it too thick, I think. But then I just put that on like mortar mix or something like that on the piece of wood, clamped it to my arch, sealed it up nice and tight. And you know, you're supposed to mix the epoxy for 3 minutes, right? Well, I can use the phone, it's got a timer on it, but then I take the chance of getting a piece of epoxy or something on the phone. Not very many people wear a watch anymore. There's not a clock out where I was working. So I used something similar to an egg timer. And it worked out really well. So I make sure that I get my epoxy mixed properly so that it holds right. Anyway, so now I let that dry, came back the next day, sanded it out, and you can still see where there's some gaps. So again, I made just a little bit of thickened epoxy, filled all that in, smoothed it out. Then when that dries, come back, sand it again. Now it's not perfect, but it's a heck of a lot better than it was. And you know, it'll be layered in fiberglass and epoxy again. I'm not worried about the top arch, because when I put the plywood hard top on that, which again, you know, I'll epoxy first. I usually do like a make a penetrating epoxy first, put a couple of coats of that on, then a layer of fiberglass, maybe 2 layers, and put that on. So that top, once I get that wood over the top of it, again, there'll be some little gaps here and there. I'm not worried about that because that'll get fiberglassed over, and should be super, super strong, I think. So then the next part of the project is going to be, I want to use the side frames. Those are still in really good shape. I took a hammer to them the other day and banged on them. Everything is nice and solid. So I want to use the two sides, but I'm going to put this arch across it. You know, I got to take the old top off, put this arch across. I don't think I'll be able to use that same plywood because it's got 2 layers of fiberglass on it. It's not going to bend. And then I'm going to make on the front, that'll be more of an, instead of it being like this, it'll be more like this, so that it clears the traveler, so that I can see underneath it without having to duck down or stand way up. Well, stay tuned, guys, and until next time, happy and safe boating to you, your family, and friends.